So whoever is not muted, to mute yourself and unmute to participate. We always welcome as much participation as possible. Today, we give continuation to the topic of memory of physical life. We covered up to item question 307. I'm going to remind again that this part of the book, when you're dealing with life in the spiritual world, Kardec's really trying to figure out how does we live without a physical body? How is our life in the spiritual world? For the most trivial things, and do you eat or do you dress? To the more complex things that we're going to see here today, memories of the spiritual world. Do we care about things that is happening on earth while we are not here, or we don't care at all? How does it go? So Kardec is trying to cover everything. And of course, memory of physical life is one of the important things. Another thing that's going to remind, and they're going to repeat, and basically every single question. So if I don't say it, assume that it's being said. Most of the answers will have a depend. It's relative. And it will depend, and it's relative in accordance with the moral and intellectual progress of each individual spirit that will form colonies of spirits that has similar a level of moral intellectual progress, and moral more important than intellectual. And also keep in mind, many of those questions are given in potential. The spirit has the capability, has the ability, spirit of can, but not all will be able to achieve that. In the same example, humans can swim. Not every human can swim. But the answer, can humans swim? The answer is yes, absolutely yes. Now you put, no, after the yes, some people have not learned yet. Or some people did not care to learn, whatever, right? But the answer is yes. Some of the answers that the spirits give, as the spirits do this, not all, not everyone, right? But in potential, everyone can, the same way that in potential, every human being with rare exceptions can swim. We just have the Paralympics recently, and we see individuals without arms swimming. And swimming better than a lot of people with something absolutely unbelievable and beautiful to see, right? So in potential, yes, we can. For some, it would be more difficult, like someone with no arms, but still can, as we just seen it. I think it's important to keep in mind those two things when you go through those questions. That yes, the spirit can, but not all of will be able to do it. And there is always the relativity that is dependent on the level of moral intellectual progress the spirit has achieved. And remind ourselves that in the spiritual world we gather in accordance to these two things, right? Spirits at that same level where you form communities in the spiritual world, and the more evolved at a higher level of existence, and less evolved inferior spirit and lower level of existence. And each one you have its characteristics, each one will be more or less attached to earthly things according to their moral and intellectual development. Okay? Only this would be enough to pretty much tell us about memory of physical life. But Kardec, of course, as a great professor that he is, goes into the nuances and all the details about the topic. So the 304, Kardec asks, does the spirit remember the physical life? And the answer is yes. But again, the spirit will remember as much as it need to remember, as much as it like to remember, and perhaps even be protected of not remember things that cause more harm than good. The spirit spontaneously recover after discarnation, after leaving behind the physical body. And the answer is no, it takes some time. There is always a period of confusion, some nebulosity. You remember, you are leaving behind a very physical dance that you become extremely attached to it, become somewhat dependent to express yourself as we are, as incarnate spirits, and all of a sudden you don't have that anymore. So we're depending on the moral evolution of the spirit, the more evolved, more dematerialized is your perispirit, the easier it is that transition, that period of confusion that we all go through. It will also depend on the nature of death. Again, even if someone extremely evolved, spiritually speaking, but is only 25 years old, extremely healthy, and have an accidental, very acute death, it still has a lot of vital fluid attached to that physical body. That period of confusion perhaps will be a little bit longer if that same spirit was 75 years old or so, right? So there is all those things that take into consideration. The spirit of confusion or perturbation may last a few minutes to a few years, depend. Eventually, everybody will come to the realization, even if there was some spirit center, to be reminded they no longer have a spiritual body. Okay. The spirit remember the details, not necessarily. The same way that we do not remember with details our physical life right now. The example I used last week, that we may remember some birth dates of ours that are significant, that according to culture, according to specific individual. You know, in some cultures, most girls will remember the 16th or the 15th birthday. Guys will remember the 10th, the 21st birthdays. Those are dates that usually, not for everyone, have some meaning, okay? And relevant things that happened in our lives, you know, perhaps the death of a loved one, when the Brahman have lost so much departed, maybe we will remember those days. But trivial things, perhaps remember the 17th or the 6th or the 22nd birthday. If it's nothing really significant happened, probably we will not remember. Another thing about remembering is to keep in mind that as we leave this physical body behind and go back to the spiritual world, our perception may be extremely augmented. Maybe, no, it is. Our ability of understanding, view, and see things is extremely augmented as well, when we may then give value to things that while here we didn't pay attention, we care for, and vice versa. Things that I thought extremely important, when you go back there and say, oh, I don't care about this anymore, because we have a lot more clarity of what's the real value of things are, okay? And with that, let's go to 307. That was when we stopped last week. Philip, please.
307. How does a spirit recall its past life? Is it through an effort of imagination, or is it like a picture right before its eyes? Both. Everything that it is interested in, remembering, appears to it as if it were present. Others, life, events, appear more or less vaguely in its thoughts, or are forgotten entirely. The more dematerialized the spirit is, the more importance it attaches to material things. When we communicate with an errant spirit who has just left this world, it often forgets the names of people it liked or other details that may seem important to you. They are inconsequential to the spirit, and it erases them from its memory. However, it remembers perfectly the main events of its life that have contributed to its improvement.
So being free from the physical body and have a sensorial system that is integral to what the perispirit, and that includes perhaps memory. When the spirit wants to remember something, and that thing is extremely important for that spirit, it can retrieve its memory in such an intense way that it's like reliving that event, that is going through that again. I question myself, how does it is? I do not understand quite well how does it, but the description as if you're basically reliving that thing so intense it is the memory that spirit can recreate that moment. Again, the past is in the past. Okay, if you're going to take the theory that time does not exist, time past, present, and future is all here right now. I know this theory is out there. Very eloquent and intelligent people defends this theory. I cannot accept that. I'm too ignorant to accept such a thing. But take it, of course, he will have to take into consideration that past exists. Okay, they don't go back to the past. They are able to retrieve such an intensity that event that as if they were reliving it. And for the things that are not so important, it will have a memory pretty much like ours. I remember was there, but doesn't really go back there, but is able to remember exactly what happened and with great amount of details, depending on how important that event is for the spirit, or not even remember anything at all if it doesn't care at all to remember. It says over here that the more dematerialized the spirit is, the less importance it attached to material things. Makes sense, right? The more dematerialized the spirit is, the more he'll see the infinity and the immensity of the spiritual world, and he'll be much more attracted to the spiritual world than to this very limited physical materialized world that we live here while incarnate. And this expression gonna come again and again as we read today. It is said was that this physical world is somewhat a bad copy of the real world, the true world, the spiritual world, right? What Plato called this being the world of illusion, and the spiritual world being, or the world of ideas, to say the world of ideas being the real world, right? That's what Plato used to say. If that's the case, when the spiritual world is more dematerialized, why would he pay attention to a bad copy if he has the real thing, right? Why would you listen to a bad imitation of Michael Jackson if you can listen to the real Michael Jackson, right? So it doesn't make sense. It makes completely sense. But on the other hand, if that less dematerialized spirit, or more evolved, more spiritualized, needs to retrieve anything from its past, it can retrieve with a lot more intensity. Those will be the spirits that will pretty much retrieve the past as if you was reliving that past. Okay, because it has less limitations in its perispirit. Okay, makes sense? Comments, questions? Okay, let's look for them. 308.
308.
Yep.
Does the spirit recall all the lives that have preceded the one it has just left? Its entire past unfurls before it, like the legs of a journey completed by a traveler. As we have told you, it does not precisely remember all its past actions. It can only remember them in proportion to the impact they have had on its present state. Its earliest lives are hazy, like infancy, for instance, and shadowed by the night of oblivion.
In potential, the spirit can retrieve all its existence, all of its past existence. The question would be what for? Okay. And what is the need of doing so? How significant would it be for us to remember our days of Neanderthals? But we passed, or most of us, or some of us passed that period. Okay, it is there. It is in your memory file, so to say. But there is no use to going back there. So it can only remember them in proportion to the impact that they have on its present state. So let's say a more purified spirit, the one that is just talking about, one dematerialized spirit. Why it would be, or what for, interested in reincarnation when he was still a very inferior spirit? If that spirit reached that level, it tells us that whatever happened at past, it's in the past. He doesn't need anymore. He is recovered to whatever trauma that he has corrected or anything that he need to correct. He's free of those vices, so he doesn't need to be going back there. For us, spirits still in early stages, those remembers going back may have a therapeutic value or an educational value. So there is a reason, there is a what for you going back over there. Okay, we have therapy of past lives here now for us incarnate. Perhaps that's this kind of spirit came to the spiritual world all traumatized. Why did I have to go through this? Why did it going back in the past and maybe have a therapy of past lives as a discarnated spirit may be beneficial. So everything needs to have a reason, and that, and a more important, a purpose, a what for, and that can be done because everything that happens to us is stored somewhere. Some may be important and will be retrieved. Some are meaningless, and perhaps some are important but is inadequate to retrieve at that moment because could cause more harm than good. Okay? Comments, questions? Okay, 309.
How does a spirit view the body that it has just vacated? As uncomfortable clothing that encumbered it, it is elated to finally be rid of it. How does it feel when it sees the decomposition of its body? Almost always indifferent, like something it no longer cares about.
So first thing is remember that physical body that we carry right now, poses tremendous limitation to us. And we are like individuals who with uncomfortable kind of gloves that doesn't allow us to express all the dexterity that we do without the gloves on. So to get rid of it is indeed a good thing. But also have to remind ourselves that this is the most perfected instrument placed at our hands to do our work over here, to reach progress. We can learn everywhere about the progress here in this physical body, and we need that physical body to progress. So the spirit will value this instrument. The spirit will be grateful for the opportunity of using this instrument. We'll take the best possible care of the instrument. But when it's free of it, it says, oof, I did my job, I'm happy, I don't need this thing anymore. I'm much better without carrying all this weight. Okay, so I just want to make sure that the more evolved the spirit may be, the more value and gratitude and respect it will give to this physical instrument. That is extremely valuable to us. We have to keep that in mind. It's not so casually say, it's an uncomfortable clothing that it interpreted, and it is elated to finally get rid of it. I'm so happy I'm free of this thing. Yes, you are happy to not have to have it anymore, but at the same time, you are grateful for the opportunity of having it, of using it, and hopefully make good use of it for a while you have to endure carrying that extra weight on you. Okay, so yes, the spirit will be content to not have to carry it anymore. Okay. And how does it feel when it sees the composition of the body? This is a big dependent on the moral, intellectual evolution of the spirit. That's a big one here. Assume that you don't know anything about our spiritual nature and you are essentially materialist, 100% materialist. That is nothing but matter. Witnessing the composition of your body will be a terror. You'll be painful, you'll be difficult. You'll be a state of absolute despair. And you can say self-imposed, right? Because there is plenty of opportunity that we have to understand that we are more than just a collection of trillions of cells. You know, the trillions of cells eventually will stop working, and as soon as it stops working, the process of decomposition starts. Even before it starts to smell, it already started the composition right there, right? You know that very well. You know that since Lavoisier is lost, nothing is lost, everything is transformed. His physical body will be transformed. And we still deny our spiritual nature. It's self-inflicted. You're going to go through the difficulties that you impose upon yourself. But again, for a more dematerialized spirit, a more evolved spirit, what would you care what's happening to that physical body? You give your expressive gratitude to it. You did the best that you could with it. Now is in its process of returning to nature in its smallest pieces. You just leave it behind, you go on. If you are very attached to a old coat that doesn't fit you anymore and you want to keep it in your closet forever, it's a problem, right? If you give away because there is no more room in the closet, you have to give it away, but now you're going back to the streets to see who is wearing it and why and how and is taking good care of it, you are a lunatic. You can do the same thing with that physical body, right? But if you are more evolved, you'll be more than happy to know that somebody else is making good use of something that once you used for as long as it served you. So this is a big depend But in general, most spiritual is gonna move on, doesn't care, let nature do what nature does and move on with your spiritual life. But again, you have to know that you have a spiritual life. You have to understand that you have a spiritual life. You have to understand that eventually you're gonna come back, and when you come back, and there's a good point also, you're not gonna go back to that same physical body anymore. You know, he's have to bring a cultural aspect into what's planet. The people believe that when resurrection and return to the same body than reincarnation. If we have the understanding of reincarnation, that's gone. If we have the belief of resurrection that eventually going to come back and use that same body, that could be another state of despair, right? But again, as you return to the spiritual world, a lot of those cultural things here dissipates. You understand right away that that's not the way it goes, and give a little value to it. Thank God, right? Any comments, questions? Okay. Let's see.
310. In time, does a spirit recognize the remains that once belonged to it? Sometimes, but this depends on a more or less elevated perspective with regard to material matters.
Even hard to add anything to it. Does the spirit care for the things that it once belonged to it, that it used? Absolutely depend on the, in this case, mostly moral achievements of that spirit. It is a question of attachment, how attached you are to things, right? You can be attached to your physical body and being terror, watching it decomposing. You can be attached to a house that you bought it with so much effort and you paid for so long and you took such a good care of the house, you never let anything go bad, you always made the reparations on time, and now boom, you're back in the spiritual world and that house does no longer belong to you, and you let it go. And it'll say, okay, no, whatever happens, I don't care, I don't need, it's not for me anymore. Or you truly have a sense that this is my house, I paid for it, I'm going to keep it, I'm not going to allow anybody to live in this house, anyone to try to come here, I will do all the mess that I can to get them out. Unfortunately, it happens, right? Again, self-imposed suffering, a little bit of understanding, a little bit of detachment, a little less pride, a little less selfishness, and would free yourself from all these problems. So some spirit will remain somewhat attached and keeping thinking of the remains of things that belongs to it. In general, most spirit will not.
Yeah, my grandfather, he bought the lot. He's then sold to a construction. So they built they built the building, and when he passed in 2013, since then my mom is trying to sell the apartment. She cannot sell the apartment. And my grandfather was super materialistic.
They cannot
I'm
sell it.
pretty sure he's still
It's
there.
holding on.
He's still there. Like, get out of my place. And then that's what I believe. So this past July, I went to the apartment. And then I did a lot of prayers and tried to my grandfather say, hey, like, yeah, we're done, we're happy here.
Let it go.
We
Let
had a
it
lot
go.
of good memories, but now it's time to another family to be happy here. And kind of trying to be thankful for what he did, but not trying to explain to him, like,
To help him to
to
detach.
help him to detach from the apartment.
Right.
My mom got 2 offers. Didn't sell it yet, but got 2 offers.
Oh, no, nice. Yeah, it happens, and we could question, since we understand these things, a lot of things that happens that would be otherwise could not give us an explanation. We have an apartment in a good neighborhood, in a good area, in a time where there is so need for housing. Why could not sell the place? There is nothing wrong with the place. There's if you cannot, again, if you cannot find, and that after you exercise good reason and rule out all the possible physical reasons, then yeah, you take an approach of the spiritual cause. And I think very often that would be the case. Attachment is a big problem. $11.
Does respect for the material items once owned by a spirit attract its attention to those objects? And is it pleased by this respect? A spirit is sometimes happy to be remembered by those it has left behind. The objects preserved jog the memory of those holding on to them. However, a spirit is attracted by their thought and not the objects themselves.
Okay. A nice step in the back is always nice. Even if you're highly elevated in the spirit, recognition that the work that you did was nicely done, it's nice. Who would not like that, right? If a spirit has done, achieved good things while incarnate on earth, and then their objects become, I don't know, pieces of a museum or so, and people have some kind of reverence toward those objects in memory of that individual or the good work that individual have done. Who's going to be pleasing to the spirit? But important here is that the spirit doesn't really is interested in the materials that's being recognized themselves. The spirit is much more interested and attached to the thoughts that the individuals generate when they see those objects in reverence of the good work of that individual or that individual, him or herself, right? It's not necessarily the object itself, right? So when you go to the little museum of Chico Xavier, a little tiny house in Pedro Leopoldo, and you see the little tiny bed where he slept, and and other things over there, the little cup of coffee they drink, and everything is over there. Once you walk over there, if it's someone like myself without mediumship, there is a level of energy that is unbelievable that you feel there. Okay. But you think that Chico Xavier is really concerned with that bad? You yourself, there is some of those hats they used to use with that. You think he really care for those? Or is this the thought that we elevating or even making a prayer for the wonderful work that he does for us, that you'll be grateful for and will attract him to that place, not the object itself, but the energy, again, a thought that is generated in us when we see those objects in reverence of the whole the work that he has done. And the same go for military people or people in government and great doctors of the past, Dr. Oswald Cruz is just an example. You revere, you recognize, and you respect, and you honor the work that those individuals did. And you save those little objects in a museum or in a house. But those spirits don't care for the object itself, but the thoughts that the object generated in our mind, that's what will attract them and will please them. Again, there's nothing wrong with enjoy a little tap on the back for good work that I have done. Everybody will. There's no pride in it. Unless there's no pride, there will be a pseudo pride to tell that you don't care. Because everybody does care. Any comments there? 312.
Do spirits preserve the memory of the pain and suffering that they endured in their last physical life? They often do, and this memory further accentuates the happiness they enjoy as spirits.
Okay, so again, that is also in potential. The higher order spirit, the more elevated spirits, hopefully us who's doing all these studies over here and understanding better what we are as a tiny spirit. Once we go back to the spiritual world, we will remember the difficulties, the hardship, the pain, and that we had associated with the physical body. We will be grateful for those opportunities because that help us to develop ourselves. But at the same time, that will give us the sense of achievement and be even more content of being in the spiritual world, back in the spiritual world, because you no longer have to be dealing with that pain, that stress associated with the physical body, or the hardship that you had during this incarnation. On the other hand, individuals may not be able to leave the past behind and continue to relive those moments, those pains, those hardships, especially when they feel, true or not, most of the time it is true, that all that pain was done by a second or third party. Someone did this to me, somebody caused this to me, someone make me go through this, and create that desire to make that person pay for what I have done. That person becomes somewhat a prisoner of the past, a prisoner of that pain, that moment of hardship. I cannot let it go because of the desire to make justice to their own hands, to the thoughts of revenge. Outside of it, most spirits will just remember, but will not relive it. It's something in the past, and they'll be even happier now that that period, that stress, that pain was a good stepstone for their progress, and they're even happier to be back in the spiritual world, free from those hardships. All right? 13.
Do people who have been happy in their physical lives miss their earthly pleasures when they leave this world? Only lower order spirits miss pleasures that accompany the impurity of their nature and which must be atoned by suffering. Higher spirits prefer the happiness of eternity to the fleeting happiness of human life, just as an adult despises the delights of his or her youth.
Okay, so people have been happy here in the physical world while attached to this physical body, miss the pleasures, the happiness that we had here. Again, that'll depend on the moral involvement. If that the definition of happiness, the understanding of happiness and contentment is purely limited to the physical existence, the physical body, to the physical pleasures, yes, they will remember, they will miss it. Sex addicts who are spiritual sex addicts, who want to go back to the spiritual world, they are not free of it. They've lost the body, but the vice is still there. They will miss it, and they will seek it any way they can get it, they'll try to get it. The spirits more evolved, as I said, they have a good understanding that this physical world is a bad copy of the real world. Why would they care for the little pleasures that they had here, which is a bad copy? They will desire something much more elevated. They will see our moment of pleasures and happiness here as trivialities that have become almost meaningless to them. Secondary, the splendor of the augmented happiness and pleasure that can achieve in the spiritual world with the things of spiritual nature. Because if you seek for the pleasures or happiness or things of material nature, you will suffer more and more and more, and you declare to yourself and to everyone else that you are not all that evolved yet. Right? So the more dematerialized, the more evolved, the less you care for the things that happen here while incarnate. And unfortunately, the opposite is also true. The one who was so dense, materialized, limit himself to material pleasures, will not have a good time up there and will miss all the experience I've had here with the flesh. And unfortunately, they'll try to get it any way that they can. Any questions there? Any comments?
314.
Yep.
When individuals have initiated important endeavors for a worthwhile cause and their lives are cut short by death, do they regret leaving the work unfinished when they reach the other world? No, because they understand that others are destined to complete them. On the contrary, they try to inspire other people to carry on what they left behind. Their goal in this world is to be useful to the human race, and it is the same in the spirit world.
Okay, so by the answer, you can tell here the spiritual talk of a little more evolved spirit, right? It's someone who has that great understanding. I'm gonna come with a mission of doing this work. I'm gonna do the work from the beginning until I last in the physical world. Once that physical body dies, I go back to the spiritual world and someone else will continue the work. Usually the mission does not belong to me, that belongs to the human race. So you work for the goodness of human race, for the human race. Now, a less evolved the spirit, individual with some degree of attachment, may call it my mission, my work, right? With a sense of possession of that thing, and may complain that he was not allowed to finish the work. You have to remember that the work will always continue, that it's our job to come here, do while you can, the best can while we are here. Once we are called back, someone else will continue the work. You need to have that level of detachment of things, including, even if you can call it a mission that was entrusted to you. You completed your part of the mission. Somebody else will complete that part of the mission. It's even a question of being selfless, right? I did my part. Now I have to open room for someone else to do their part. So that will be reserved for a little more evolved. I don't think need to be, a higher spirit to have this mentality. I think most of us, not only spiritists, but most of us, should be able to have this understanding as we go back to the spiritual world. Maybe I'm being too optimistic, but I think we don't need to be all that high or so highly evolved to have this understanding. You do what you can while you're here. When you're no longer here, someone else will do it. You continue the work.
Can I say that Allan Kardec can be an example for that question? Because he was doing all this work, all the purification, and then after he discarnated, Leon Denis continued, and then after that came André Luiz and others.
Absolutely, I'm not a good historian, but as much as I know, after his passing, after he's going back to the spiritual world, he gave a couple of communication himself, but then at least we don't know if he's still doing it. Just let the work continue. He did his work right after his discarnation. I know that he did one or two provide some one or two messages from the spiritual world. But after that, unless he's using a pseudonym, another pseudonym, yeah, he's done. He's done his part. He's gone, and that's what I would expect from a spirit of such a high order as Kardec. I don't think so. Yeah, I think most of them they've done their job, and now it's the room is open for someone to continue, take the lead, and continue what we have started. The 15th.
When individuals leave behind works of art or literature, are they still as interested in these matters when they reach the spirit world as they were in this world? They view them with a different perspective, according to their elevation, and often criticize what they once admired.
Again, arts and literature requires a degree of an elevation of the spirit, right? The spirit produces those things, right? And the spirit comes here with this ability to produce art, to produce books, literature, to produce poems. You do the best. But once going back to the spiritual world, we take over here someone with intellectual development, and we'll have to experience art and then literature in the spiritual world, which is the real life, not a bad copy. The little things that they have produced here, the little things for them there, for us, is still gigantic work, not diminishing the value of the work that's done here in any way. But there, they will see things that are more impressive to them than anything that they have done, anything they have seen over here. So they will kind of not be too interested on the work of art and the literature that is done over here. Sometimes we keep imagining, takes the book, let's say, the historical books of Emmanuel, that you know that he does tremendous amounts of research before writing the book, like Paul and Steve. He had the opportunity to speak with the spirit that is Paul of Tarsus and others and get everything together. And we know that he checked in some libraries over there. You can just imagine the kind of library they might have in the spiritual world. The ones that Emmanuel would use resource. It's got to be something, light years ahead of us. Something that Emmanuel would use to learn something that Emmanuel does not know yet. It has to be light years ahead, everything that is produced here. In the book Messengers, I think you remember that one spirit entered in a place of kind of a castle and saw a picture on the wall, and so, wow, I remember seeing this picture. And they say, yeah. And the answer from the mentor, yeah, this picture indeed, one of your artists made a copy of this work in the spiritual world. And this was what you're seeing here is still a copy. It's nothing. It's much superior than what was done. It's nothing compared with this kind of picture in higher levels of existence, because the messengers, they were in kind of the lower zones. And that was already much greater than what we can appreciate here while incarnate. And that was nothing even compared with the kind of art that is done in the high sphere of existence. So once you get over there, again, not diminishing the value of things that was done here, the value of things that we have here at our disposal. We are here because we belong here, and we better appreciate all the good things that are here. But once you go to the spiritual world, you'll see that although good, it's not as good as what they can experience over there. I am going to stop here. It's 6 minutes to end. Last week we went over and I was kind of embarrassed by it. We'll continue next week. The topics will be pretty much the same. Hopefully be able to finish it. This part. Is there any comments, any questions? Today is 7th. Okay, no questions? All right, so Carol, can you make the final prayer, please?
Oh, sure. Thank you very much, Elmo. And thank you, Philip, for reading and everyone here participating. Infinite Creator and Supreme Intelligence, we give thanks for the opportunity to be together again as brothers and sisters for our studies of the Spirit's book, Book 2, Chapter 6, entitled Memory of Physical Life. A spirit will remember its physical life and may perceive pertinent details little by little. A spirit can remember things that have been more impactful and may serve as a useful purpose in its present state. The body is like uncomfortable clothing, which a spirit leaves behind at death. If it is materialistic, it may still be attached to the body and their personal objects during the recent incarnation. Higher order spirits prefer the happiness of eternity. We give thanks to the spiritual benefactors and the good spirits for guiding and inspiring us today. May we receive the love, light, and peace of Christ within us and for our loved ones, our teachers, our directors, our counselors, the mediums, the workers, and all participants. We pray for inner peace and especially now for world peace and for those who are suffering in the physical and spiritual worlds. We pray for our center, SGNY, and all Spiritist centers throughout the world that they may grow, prosper, expand, and be protected throughout the day and throughout the night. As we close, we humbly ask for safety and protection as we return to our family, friends, loved ones, and co-workers. May we go forth now as beacons of love, of light, of peace, of service, and charity, which is love in action. May peace and love prevail. So be it.